Warning: the following video contains explicit language which may be offensive to some viewers or inappropriate for children. The content within this video is intended for mature audiences only.
Are you ready? Hello everybody, it's Jeff. Hope you're having a great day where you are. It's been a day of rain here in Maine, and cold. It was in the low 50s today. So yeah, it got everybody kind of in a pissy mood too, because driving around out there, because I had a doctor's appointment earlier today, and it's not far from here, but I avoided 2 accidents here because people are just cutting me off, or they're tailgating me, and it's just, what the hell is the hurry? Jesus Christ. There's moods in this fucking town where people, when they're in a bad mood, they take it out on the fucking street. I'm sick of that. Sick of the fucking moods. I'm sick of that goddamn road rage that goes on in this town. Christ, I mean, you think the hell I was living in New York here, for Christ's sake. Anyway, got a couple of videos here, and this first one here talks about, and this is from Raw News, this first one talks about how the polls, weeks of polling has been brutal for Trump. And, I'm not one that really puts a whole lot of emphasis on polling data, okay? But, other people do. And when they see that, it impacts, those that are the target of the polls. I mean, if it's, about Trump, if Trump sees these polling numbers, yeah, he's going to be pissed. I mean, he's got a very fragile ego, so he doesn't like it when people talk bad about him. So let's go to this video, okay, and then we will discuss this on the other side.
Everyone, welcome to the show. I have new polling data to share, and it is a lot more bad news for Donald Trump and his failing presidency. Before I get into all those numbers, though, please do me a huge favor. Click on the subscribe button below this video. It really helps to bring more awareness to this information. So on to the numbers. And I do want to say before I dive into, I'm harping somewhat on the polling, because it, as I've mentioned before, it sets up a permission structure for people to speak out. And we are seeing this happen more and more lately. We are seeing people who have large platforms, who have a lot of subscribers and viewers, and people who are that others look up to, people with clout and celebrity in the MAGA universe. And they're finally speaking out against Trump. And they won't do that if they think that the whole nation is on his side and he's wildly popular. So that's what we saw right after he was elected, right after he won the election, and even up through, the first month of his presidency. So that's why this is important. So here's what's going on with the polling. So first up is a poll conducted by Navigator Research. They asked voters about the economy, and they found that a majority believe that we're already in a recession, which we are not. I believe the official definition is 2 consecutive quarters of contraction in the GDP. So we're not there yet, but we did just come off of our first quarter with GDP, recession activity, I guess you could call it a contraction. So we'll see, if there's another one after the second quarter, Yeah, we are officially there. But 53% said yes, we're already in a recession. 47% said no. And when they asked voters to explain what emotions they're feeling in regard to politics, here's what they had to say. And I should point out, they were allowed to choose up to 5 of these feelings. So the number one answer was anxious. 50% of the respondents agreed with that. Number 2 was discouraged at 48%. And the third and fourth answers were exhausted and angry. Those both garnered 42%. So, not exactly the emotions that you would hope for at the 100-day mark. This next one is very telling. So, they asked about, or they asked people that took this poll, they asked the respondents about various topics and if they're concerned about these. So, the number one concern remains the cost of groceries going up. 80% of the respondents are either very or somewhat worried about that. And even 65% of Republicans and 78% of independents were included in that number. Also, Trump's attempt to blame Biden for the economy is just not working. So check out this next graph. The overwhelming majority of respondents blame Trump for prices rising and for the stock market volatility. And check out what Republican pollster Frank Luntz told CNN in regard to their recent polling about Trump.
These numbers are significant and they are measurable. Those that came to him in the last few days or voted for him because they did not like the alternative, those are the people who are saying, I don't like this either. And that's what you're seeing in the polls. There's that group in the middle. They don't love Trump. They don't hate him. They just want a successful country. They want an easier lifestyle. They're looking at this and saying, it's not easier, it's tougher. This is not what I'm looking for. In fact, this is what I wanted to get away from.
So, yeah, I mean, he's right. There were a lot of people, swing voters especially, who just needed some financial relief. You know, and they falsely believed all of Trump's BS about, oh, I'm going to bring prices down on day one. You know, how's that working out? End the war on day one, bring prices down on day one, hasn't done a damn thing. Well, I mean, the only way to actually do that, like immediately, quickly, the only way is to bring prices down is to crash the economy. So I guess we're on our way. There was also a PBS NPR Marist poll that was conducted. This was done at the end of April, and it shows Trump with a 42% approval rating, 53% disapproval. So those numbers represent a substantial shift since March. And here's the really dangerous news for Trump. If you look at the crosstabs, the Marist poll shows that his base is eroding. So only 40% of rural voters approve of Trump's job performance. 40%. That is a 19% decline since they conducted their last poll in February. So huge, huge shift away from him. And only 39% of all respondents approve of Trump's handling of the economy. And again, I will point this out ad nauseum. That was his best issue. The great businessman, the self-made billionaire who was handed $400 million by his daddy. And when they asked people to grade Trump, a plurality of 45% gave him an F. There was another 5,000 person survey, which is larger than normal. Mostly they're typically like around 1,500 people, 2,000 people. So this one was 5,000. This was done by PRRI. And they found that 52% of Americans agree with the statement that Trump is a dangerous dictator whose power should be limited before he destroys American democracy. That was their statement, and 52% of the respondents said, yeah, I agree with that. And 78% of the respondents disagreed with the idea of Trump ignoring Congress and the Supreme Court. So they specifically said, if these groups, if the Supreme Court, if Congress tries to kind of rein him in, put guardrails around him, are you okay with him just flouting those decisions and just running roughshod and doing whatever the hell he wants? 78% said no, absolutely not. So that includes a lot of Republicans. Also, 89% agreed that no elected official, including the president, should be above the law. And here are some other reasons to be hopeful. So 8% of Trump voters regret their votes in 2024, as do 15% of Americans who voted for a third party. So pretty big numbers. And 31% of the respondents who didn't vote in 2024 regret not voting. So of the respondents in this poll who did not vote in 2024, 31% said, I regret that decision. So definitely things like this could change the midterms. It could change the future elections for the better. Also, they found that the vast majority of Americans prefer to live in a nation with diverse religious beliefs and diverse ethnicities. That really shocked me. 70% agreed on the religion question, and 80% agreed that they prefer to live in the U.S. and as it is, made up of, I should say, people all over the world. 73% of Republicans agreed with that. So, not what you would expect. And then an Atlanta Journal-Constitution poll was also released last week. This poll included only Georgia voters. So 55% of these Georgia voters disapprove of Trump's second term. Only 43% approve. Remember, Georgia was one of the states that flipped back to Trump after going for Biden. And he won pretty comfortably in that state. So he's now already 12% upside down in approval. When they were asked about key issues, the majority also disapproved of various issues that Trump is handling. 55% disapprove of his handling of the economy. That is a complete flip-flop, because when the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, when they conducted their poll before Trump took office, so in late June or January, at that time, 56% approved of Trump's handling of the economy. They believed, I should say, that he would improve the economy by becoming the president. But still, a lot of his voters, as I've mentioned before, they're willing to give him more time. So there was a Georgia man that they spoke with named Clint Myers. He told the Atlanta Journal-Constitution that he, quote unquote, begrudgingly voted for Trump. And he said, quote, his record so far is complicated. Some of it is good. Some of it is bad. I'm still glad I backed him. I'm not second guessing him, but I'm not a fan of the man. Myers admitted, though, that Trump's tariffs are directly affecting him and his family. He said that they've canceled subscription services, they've canceled summer vacation plans that they had, and he said that his family is looking for other ways to cut back. So, sounds great, Myers. Yeah, sounds like what you voted for, right? How's that working out for you? So as with the other poll, though, there is reason to hope, because 82% of the AJC respondents said Trump should obey federal court orders. So he's taking a big risk by just thumbing his nose at these courts. And that number, I should point out, that included 2/3 of the people who voted for Trump. He's throwing away the opportunity that some people gave him against their own best judgment. People who reluctantly voted for him based on the economy, and now they're seeing him just violate the Constitution. And then in regard to immigration, 52% of these Atlanta Journal-Constitution respondents disagree with Trump's immigration policy. So again, he is losing ground on every single issue. I also have good news to share about some shifting state polls. So Newsweek, they publish this really cool interactive map. It's not their map. They get it from a company called Civiqs, spelled with a Q. But it shows Trump's approval rating in each state and how it's changed. I've shared these with you before. So there were some really surprising changes. So check out Florida. In January, for those on the podcast, Trump had a +8 approval rating in Florida. He is now down -1. He has lost 9 points in Florida. Florida, you guys. Florida, y'all. Margaritaville. He is down. Trump down. Get down. Get in the chopper. Anyway, that is my best Arnold Schwarzenegger impression. All right. Anyway, back to the polling. Texas is also really bad. In January, Trump was at +3. He is now -2 in Texas. Deep in the heart of Texas. In fact, he is down in every single state as compared to January. So even the states where he is still above water, where he's still popular, he's lost some support there. He's lost support since he took office. Case in point, look at this. Look at Ohio. Trump is still above water, but he's now above water only by 2 points. He's lost 5% of his support in Ohio since January, the very red ruby state of Ohio. And notably, he is underwater in all 6 of the critical swing states that he flipped in 2024. So that would be Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. All the states he flipped away from Biden and won in 2024, he is now underwater in every single one of those. Not like he just lost ground, but they still are positive about him. No, he has a negative approval rating in every single one of those states. So it is shifting. It is shifting fast, and in a good way for us, a very negative way for Trump. And again, this sets up a permission structure. This allows people in his own party to speak out, to vote against him and what he wants, to buck his ideas, to stand up and speak the truth. And we are seeing it. So this is a very good thing. So anyway, guys, I will let you know if I hear any more. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Please like, please share, and subscribe. Please donate if you can.
Well, last quarter, the report came out that the GDP shrank. Not by much, though. I think it was like, I don't know, 0.3% or something like that. It was low. But this was data that was collected from January, February, March, and April. Okay? And if you recall, in that 4-month period, there was an awful lot of talk about tariffs going on, scaring the shit out of people, scaring the shit out of businesses. And if you remember, during that time, people were stockpiling on stuff. So at the same time that the GDP was shrinking, spending was up. But it was only up because it was panic buying. Okay? It was panic buying. Now, people were saying, is there a recession? A lot of people are saying, yeah, it's coming. A recession's coming. And we say a recession is here when we have 2 quarters back to back, I guess, that show a decline in the GDP. Then they categorize that as a recession. So the next report that comes out, if it shows that the GDP shrank some more, and everybody says it will show, then, you know, that means that we are officially in a recession. But people, like I said, some people already say we are, okay, because, hey, look, they've already been bitching here about how some stores are cutting back, laying off workers, you know, people losing their jobs. You know, that kind of stuff only precipitates and continues the cycle of a shrinking GDP. It doesn't actually help it any. So if people are not spending money and they're not, you know, they don't have any work, you know, hey, it's inevitable. It's going to shrink some more, you know. So with that being said, it kind of contradicts, you know, the lie that Trump's been putting out there that this is Biden's economy. It's like, well, it can't be, because Biden wasn't talking about tariffs before he left office. Trump was. And it's because of that talk of tariffs that the GDP shrank in that first quarter. And when you look at the articles being in the news today, you're hearing about UPS laying off 20,000 workers. You hear about this other, you know, the truckers having fewer things to ship around. People aren't buying as much online. Okay. When you can factor all that in, none of this stuff was happening before Biden left. So, hey, you know, the guy sitting in the White House when things bad happen, okay, that's on them. Not the previous administration. He left Trump a good economy. All Trump had to do was not fuck with it. All he had to do was just run with it. He could have, and just sat there with it, okay? If he'd have left it alone, we wouldn't be here where we are, okay? But no, he couldn't have it that way. He couldn't have it that way because, you know, he was in this thing, into this goddamn presidency for his second time, to, first of all, wipe the slate clean on his criminal record so he couldn't, you know, be put in prison, okay? So he pardons himself. And then he's got like this fucking need to go after every country on the planet here for some reason, and saying he's punishing them by putting tariffs, but they're not paying the tariffs. We're paying the tariffs. The companies that, you know, he's tariffing, they pass that expense on to us. So you know, they ain't paying it. We are. All right. So I feel like, you know, it's really astounding, you know, when you think about the fucking lie that Trump goes around and he's saying, oh, it's because before he was saying, oh, the economy was doing great and everything is doing well, and when they realized that nobody was believing it, he changed the narrative to saying, well, this is Biden's economy. So, you know, in the same couple of weeks, you know, he's went from one side of the argument to the other. And the point is there is no argument, okay? Yes, the economy's bad, and yes, he created this economy, all right? Even the former president, Biden, had come out and said, look what happened in just the 4 months. You know, he basically laid it out there that, you know, this is ridiculous. This was not going on when I was president, and he's trying to tell you it was. It wasn't. It wasn't. He never said anything about putting tariffs on anybody. Only Trump was. So, you know, if you're still a MAGA supporter after everything that's happened so far, then your issue was never about the economy or the problem at the border, you know, illegal immigrants. What it is that you're a person who doesn't care about morality, facts, you know, or the law for that matter, okay? You don't care about any of those things. You were just on the course of owning the libs, and this is what you've done to own the libs. You actually had to sacrifice yourself and your fucking economic standing in order to get, you know, you cut your nose off to spite your face. Basically is what you done. You know, that's not what we call owning anything. You owned yourself. You've harmed yourself. What you attained was no victory at all. Okay, even though you want to go around telling people you won, you haven't won, because now a lot of you people who voted for him wished you hadn't. So what kind of victory is that? You know, if you won something, if you own the libs, the same people that voted for him would still be supporting him, right? Well, no, it's not happening. You just saw how you know, the numbers in the polling showed how many people are so upset with him right now, with Trump. And they're not seeing a guy that they can believe in anymore. You know, which is something we were trying to tell you guys way back last year, that you can't believe this guy. You cannot trust him. He has ulterior motives, and they have nothing to do with him, but with his Project 2025, which was written out by the Heritage Foundation. It was their agenda that he was running on, but he wouldn't really get into it with you because he knew people weren't going to like it. That's why I was trying to get people to read it, because Trump wasn't going to tell you. And, you know, the Democrats tried to, you know, in pieces, but they really did a shitty job trying to expel out what was in that thing too. It wasn't, it wasn't like some kind of a thing that you could just gloss over. There was a lot in that thing. And most of what was in there has already been done through executive orders. Okay? And now that people are living through this change into the Project 2025 agenda, they're getting mad, they're getting angry, and I'm like, people like me were already mad and angry that he was even cogitating on these things. Okay? And we were trying to convey this to you. We weren't trying to lie to you or mislead you. We were telling you the facts. The facts. Okay? Written by one of your own think tanks. The Heritage Foundation. I mean, that's a think tank for the Republicans. Their own fucking party wrote this shit out. And because a Democrat pointed it out, they think, oh, it's propaganda. No, it's coming right out of your own fucking mouths. This is what they want. You guys wouldn't read it. And so now we're living everything that was spelled out in that manifesto. It's happening now. It's happening. It ain't done yet. They ain't done yet. There's still more of it yet to come. And I feel like, what's the reason why people have to learn things the hard way? Seriously, why? Why do you put yourself through that? Why can't you just learn from what's happened in the past? Learn from mistakes. Don't repeat them because you think, oh, well, maybe the third time is the charm. No, don't do that. Don't keep putting your hand on the burner thinking it's not going to burn. Okay? Stop being an idiot. And one of the things in that polling data that she had said, which I have a lot of doubt of the accuracy of it, was the idea that 70% of the Republicans polled support a diverse population in the United States. I don't believe that for a fucking minute. I'm sorry. The evidence to the contrary is overwhelming. Why are we exporting people out of this country if the Republicans like a diverse population? They don't. Okay? They just don't. And there's never been any point in history where they felt any different than that. Okay? So I don't know where some of these numbers come from. Okay? I don't know why anybody would say in the Republican Party that they would support a diverse population, because most of the fucking Republicans out there don't like blacks, don't like Latinos, don't like Asians, don't like anybody that comes from another country or who isn't white. Okay? There's never been any fucking point where you could sit down with a Republican and expect them to like somebody. Okay? I'm sure there might be a handful here and there in pockets, small pockets, of Republicans who aren't as extreme as others. But for the most part, their policies that they support always seem to impact a certain economic rung on the ladder. And that rung usually is occupied by the minorities, in the country, and people that are, disabled, their policies always impact those who need the help the most. And it's like, well, people that care about diversity in this country and all that wouldn't constantly be attacking it on this level. Okay? They wouldn't be. You know, and Donald Trump himself is not a person that's appreciative of diverse people. You know, he's got a history of going after black people, you know, and you know, he just, you know, he's just not the kind of guy that represents the principles of what this country was founded on. He's not. He's the total anti-American. All right? And if you're supporting him, then you're also anti-American. And if there's any people in this country that deserves to be exported, it's you, MAGA. Okay? You people don't belong here. If you hate this country so bad that you would wreck its economy and destroy the lives of so many people who are clinging, you know, to prosperity as much as they can by having a job, you're destroying. You're kicking their hands out from under them so they'll fall. That's what you're doing. Americans shouldn't do that to other Americans. We don't try to stop other people from gaining ground, okay? We're supposed to help each other, for God's sake. I mean, you know, think what you want about Jerry Springer, okay? But he had that philosophy that Americans should be helping each other out, okay? They should be helping each other out. We need to stop fighting with each other, you know, and take stock of who we are and what we want to be. I mean, if we hate wars, because we always have protests when there is a war, if we hate wars and we don't like it when people are being unfairly treated by the police or whatever, if we believe in all those things, then we also believe in having peaceful coexistence in this country. And we've yet to attain that because there's certain elements in our country that just don't want that to happen. They want to get rid of certain people. But it's it's really difficult to believe that, you know, that polling information there. Okay, that's why I have my doubts sometimes about polling data. I certainly did during the election. I mean, during the campaign last year, and you know, because there's such an interest in keeping people riveted to certain issues. Okay, there is. I mean, when people are you know, invested in an election like you're at a horse race, they're not going to leave until the race is over, right? And while they're there, you know, we'll be selling them peanuts and popcorn and stuff like that while they're in the bleachers. That's what it's all about, making money, okay? And so if the polling data shows that one person's way out ahead of the other, then who's going to stick around? They know how it's going to end, right? So we don't want that to happen. We want people to stay engaged. That's why we do that. So, like I said, the polling data, take it or leave it, okay? It's, you know, not really unknown to people that there's a lot of anger out there against Trump, okay? There's like the town hall meetings and stuff like that are blowing up all over the place, and, you know, the anger, protests everywhere in the country, you know, Tesla being hit, Musk being hated, and, you know, so, you know, there's a lot of anger out there right now. Probably not of the of the like since we've had Richard Nixon as president. I mean, maybe to levels like that we haven't seen in this country. I mean, yeah, I know during George W. Bush's term, you know, H.W. whatever, no, not just W. Bush Jr. I know people in this country hated him, okay, for how he handled everything going on in the Middle East. But I think that this you know, Trump right now was probably more hated than Bush was. So that's just my opinion, of course, based on things I've read, you know, videos I've seen, people that have said stuff. Okay, certainly when you're talking about hurting people in their wallet, that's never a good idea, okay, because money talks more than anything else. And even the most loyal MAGA people will turn their back on Trump if they're out of work and there's no money and they're destitute and homeless, okay? those people, you know, they'll never fucking vote for him again. All right, and that's really sad that some people like that have to fall on their face so hard that it wakes them up to the fact that they screwed up. But that's just how it is, I guess. I mean, humanity's not perfect, I suppose. Doesn't make much sense most of the time. All right, let's go to a commercial break, and we'll return with the other video.
I'm Alex Curtis. I'm a lobsterman in Maine, and this is me.
I'm Roxy Sugar, and this is me.
I'm Eric Hopkins. I'm an artist, and this is me.
This is me.
Me.
This is me.
This is me.
At the end of the journey, the main thing is you, original.
Trump has been in office, DEA has seized over 21 million fentanyl pills. That's 21 million lives saved, in my opinion.
2 days later.
Since he's been in office, DEA has taken 22.2 million fentanyl pills off the streets. This is 119 million lives Donald Trump has saved since January. Pretty remarkable.
24 hours later.
President Trump, your DOJ agencies have seized more than 22 million fentanyl pills, which saved, are you ready for this, media? 258 million lives.
Which saved, are you ready for this, media? 258 million lives.
Can't get hard, not even with the blue pills. Will the salt trick work for me? All right, pay attention. If you're over 35 and not as firm as you should be, or if you're popping the champagne a little too early, I highly recommend the salt trick. In just 20 seconds, you can prepare this drink and your anaconda will stand tall for hours almost immediately. This homemade salt tonic has been used for years by Brahmin bull breeders in India to help them stay firm and mate with up to 20 females at once. But a few years ago, this trick fell into the hands of the adult film industry, and since then, this little secret has been used by adult actors instead of the little blue pill. That's because it works in just minutes, flushing out flaccid toxins from your body that make your buddy shrink and fail when it matters most. It may sound crazy, but this drink is 6 times more powerful than any pill from the pharmacy, and because it's natural, it has no side effects. And if you haven't heard about it yet, it's the company behind the little blue pill, starting with P, that censors anyone who talks about this cheap, homemade solution. That way, they continue raking in billions every year from the suffering of millions of men just like you. But I'm putting an end to that right now. I'm releasing the short video that shows how to prepare and use the salt trick. Back then, this video was sold for $47, or they would have taken it down immediately. But so you can start the year off right. I'm leaving this video free for the next 3 hours. In the video, it shows step by step how to prepare this 20-second trick today and leave your wife with limp legs tonight. Just click the button that's appearing somewhere in this video to watch. If a page opens, it means the video is still available, and this might be your only chance to toss the little blue pill in the trash and learn how to make this homemade, safe recipe that's 6 times more powerful than the pharmacy pill. But I should warn you, this video contains some pretty hot scenes, and it also shows an African green tonic used by tribes in North Africa to grow their tool to the point of outgrowing all their underwear. Do not use if you're already too big or satisfied with your size. And also how to eliminate the flaccid toxins that are sabotaging your hardness and shrinking your little guy like a turtle. Watch with headphones on. As I mentioned, the video is uncensored and shows exactly how this trick works to make your buddy rock hard. So click the link below and watch while it's still available.
Some people have a deep, abiding respect for the natural beauty that was once this country. And some people don't. People start pollution. People can stop it. Write for Pollution Booklet, Box 1771, Radio City Station, New York.
Be a part of the entertainment value of a lifetime.
I loved it.
It was the best performance I've seen in a lifetime.
I loved the show. I liked it very much. He's a very entertaining man. It's well worth the money.
Now appearing in Charlottetown, coming to Halifax November 6th to the 18th, and St. John November 20th through the 26th.
Oh, shit. Okay, welcome back. Okay, so the other video I have is from Ben Meiselas, and he's going to be talking about this victory the Democrats got from out of North Carolina. If you remember, and I'm not sure I covered this much because this has gone on for over 6 months, the story here. But for the state Supreme Court election they had between Jefferson Griffin, who was the Republican, I guess, and Justice Allison Riggs, Democrat. Allison won, okay, and after, you know, she was declared the winner, Jefferson decided to challenge all the fucking votes, decided to, you know, disenfranchise votes, and all kinds of things were done, and Allison wasn't sitting idle for that. So they started fighting this out in the courts, and that was 6 months ago. And so I think not today, but maybe yesterday, there was a decision handed down. So let's go to the video and we'll discuss that on the other side.
Major news out of North Carolina, folks, where the Supreme Court race back from November was thrown into turmoil, where the MAGA Republican candidate for the Supreme Court seat, Jefferson Griffin, refused to concede after losing in multiple recounts to Justice Allison Riggs, who was on the Supreme Court, the Democratic-backed candidate, Justice Allison Riggs. At every step, the MAGA Republican candidate, Jefferson Griffin, tried to challenge existing votes that were already counted. He tried to disenfranchise people. He tried to literally steal votes from people. This had been a 6-month ordeal where the votes of the people were just not being counted. It went through the state court system, from the lower level court to their Court of Appeals to the Supreme Court, where ultimately a subset of votes was ordered by the North Carolina Supreme Court to be recounted through this process, which was counter to what the will of the people were who actually voted. So after the Supreme Court in North Carolina made that ruling, separately, Justice Allison Riggs was bringing an action in federal court. And we just got a very important federal court ruling in this entire saga from, of all people, a Trump-appointed judge in North Carolina, a judge by the name of Judge Richard Myers. And you got to hand it to the guy. He followed the law. He put politics aside. And U.S. District Court Judge Richard Myers ordered the North Carolina State Board of Elections to certify a 734 vote win for the Democratic Supreme Court Justice Allison Riggs and rejected all of the MAGA candidate Jefferson Griffin's election protest. The judge did stay the order for 1 week so that Jefferson Griffin may appeal. And knowing Jefferson Griffin, I'm sure he's going to do what Jefferson Griffin does. But when you take a look at this order by the district court judge, again, a Trump-appointed judge, and I don't even like saying Trump-appointed judge, Obama-appointed judge, but I think it is still a notable factor here. Here's what the judge wrote. This consolidated action concerns an attempt to change the rules of the game after it had been played. The court cannot countenance that strategy. Permitting parties to upend the set rules of an election after the election has taken place can only produce confusion and turmoil, which threatens to undermine public confidence in federal courts, state agencies, and elections themselves. Accordingly, the court finds as follows: 1, retroactive invalidation of absentee ballots cast by overseas military and civilian voters violates those voters' substantive due process rights. That's one of the things Jefferson Griffin wanted to happen. The cure process violates equal protection rights of overseas military and civilian voters. And 3, the lack of any notice or opportunity for eligible voters to contest their mistaken designation as never residents violates procedural due process and represents an unconstitutional burden on the right to vote. Therefore, the judge ordered that the win for Justice Allison Riggs be certified. Let's bring in Justice Allison Riggs to respond to this ruling. Where are we at? Where do we go from here? It's great to have you on, and we've been having you on now for a few months following this entire saga with you. So, here we are, May 6th. The order dropped May 5th.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Ben. 6 months to the day after Election Day, after North Carolina voters spoke, a federal district court judge issued what was an enormous victory, not just for North Carolina voters, but for voters all across the country. This has been a tough 6 months, but I'm no stranger to tough fights. And we knew all along that the threat here was existential, that if people with power can toss out ballots selectively after an election, cancel the votes of people they think didn't vote for them, that democracy cannot exist in those conditions. And so we have been fighting tooth and nail in a courtroom, not just for North Carolina service members. That was a worthy enough fight for sure. North Carolina service members deserve to have someone standing up to defend them the way they defend us. But we knew that this would open the door to enormous mischief and frivolous challenges after Election Day across the country. So we're very gratified by the ruling and stand ready to continue the fight if need be. But really, this should have decisively ended it yesterday.
Can you remind our viewers what the 65,000 votes were that were being challenged? I know there was one group of 60, then there was another 5,000 that were the military overseas. And maybe you can describe also what Jefferson Griffin and the Republicans were doing to specifically, one, just target your race, not the other races, not the Trump race, not the other congressional races. Those were apparently fine. And then they micro-targeted Democratic areas only to try to change the vote after the fact. Can you go into that?
Yeah, so the legal terminology for what this was is throwing spaghetti at the wall. My opponent decided to challenge, it reached as high as 68,000 eligible North Carolinians who cast lawful ballots. The biggest bucket, 60,000 of them, were voters who were alleged to have information missing from their voter file, including a social security number or a driver's license number. But that information is not required under federal law. Federal law actually provides that those voters can vote if they show a certain ID. My parents were in that bucket of 60,000. My dad is 30 years retired military. He and my mom retired down to North Carolina to be near to me and my sister. They went to register in person using their military IDs, retired military IDs, which don't have driver's license or social security numbers on it. The Department of Defense decided years ago not to put social security numbers on military IDs. So my parents followed every rule, did everything right, as did the rest of the 60,000 voters in that bucket. Over the course of the last 6 months, we were able to knock out that challenge. Even the North Carolina Supreme Court said those voters did nothing wrong, and we won't disenfranchise them. What has persisted has been the selective targeting of voters who use a federal mechanism to vote. It's called the Uniformed and Overseas Citizens Voting Act. It's a federal law designed to address how hard it is for military members and their family to vote when they are serving away from home or overseas. Upwards of 5,500 of those voters in 4 counties only were challenged. So these are people who used a specific identifiable kind of voting because they were service members or working overseas for certain reasons. My opponent, there's 100 counties in North Carolina. He picked 4 of the most Democratic counties and challenged the military and overseas voters in those 4 counties only, and said they should be challenged. In other more red counties, no problem. And mine was the only race uncertified from the 2024 election cycle. It still is. But no complaints about Donald Trump winning North Carolina in the presidential race. A number of Democrats and Republicans won up and down the ballot. North Carolina is a very purple state, but this was really troubling, inconsistent, challenging, and it really is reminiscent of the arguments in Bush v. Gore, where in the 2000 election, the question was, well, do we do something in a handful of Florida counties that we're not doing in other counties, and subjecting military voters to the presumption that their vote is invalid unless they jump through hurdles, even when they may be serving on a submarine underseas in the Atlantic Ocean, that is unconstitutional. And we were gratified that the federal court yesterday upheld every one of the arguments we made about why these challenges violated the federal constitution.
We've talked about this concept of the laboratories of autocracy, how sometimes you're seeing these MAGA Republicans try out these playbooks in states and say, okay, well, we can do voter suppression here, we could gerrymander here. And now, even if we lose the election after doing all of those things, we can basically just kind of redo it. We can target certain areas, throw out 65,000 votes. And it's why I think, to your point, this has national implications here. If this stands, they then kind of roll this out, this test balloon everywhere else. I just want to show the video of your parents, because I think it brings it home when they're both like, if you add our ages up together, we've been voting for like 100 years. Of course, we're going to vote for our daughter. What are you talking? You're throwing out our votes for our daughter? What do you mean? Here, just watch this video.
Yeah, well, we were thoroughly shocked to find out there even was a list, and then to find out that we were on the list when we have voted successfully for 50 years without an issue.
And combined, we have voted religiously for over 100 years, the two of us together. And this is the first time a ballot's ever been challenged. And I know that my daughter had spoken a lot about recognizing voter suppression when she sees it. I can tell you, this does not feel like election integrity. Personally, this feels like voter suppression when it involves us, and a very important election to us personally. It involves our daughter.
Well, I'll tell you, Justice Riggs. So my parents were very proud when I graduated Georgetown Law. They were a little bit curious when I became a podcaster, but I got them back on my team now, and they're proud again. But I can only imagine, you got proud parents. You're a Supreme Court justice in the state of North Carolina. They go out to vote for you in the election. And then they find out that, and they're going to be so careful. How could you be more careful than the parents voting for the? I bet you they looked at it, they took photos of it, they mounted it on the wall. I bet you it was one of, and their vote was one that was initially going to be thrown out. So if it happened to them, just imagine what's happening overseas and everybody else. So I'll let you address that, but just as we wrap up, where do we go from here? What happens next?
Yeah, I mean, I have always represented voters in fights to make sure that their right to vote counted. I was a civil rights and voting rights attorney before joining the bench, and my parents' experience only reminded me of what I already knew, that there are real people at the other end of these attempts to put personal political ambition over the rule of law and the Constitution. I put my hand on a Bible 2 years ago, raised my hand and swore an oath to uphold the federal and state constitutions. And it's been my honor to fight for North Carolina voters. It's been my honor to make sure that democracy carries the day across the country, and that I stood hand in hand with voters in North Carolina who said, democracy is not going to die here in North Carolina, not on our watch. And I hope this fight is over, but if it's not, we'll keep fighting. We need people, voters, to decide elections, not politicians and not courts. And it's a good day here in North Carolina, but we will not let our guard down. We will never, ever give up in fighting to keep power in the hands of the people.
North Carolina Supreme Court Justice Allison Riggs, right off the big decision by the district court in North Carolina. Great to have you on.
Thank you so much.
Everybody hit subscribe. Let's get to 5 million subscribers.
All right. So, yeah, it's good news. I'll tell you something, though, about cases like this. When Republicans do these shenanigans, when they lose, okay, it's very important that the Democrats win these cases, okay? Because if they lose even just one case on grounds or on an issue like this, that becomes a precedent that the Republicans will later pick up on and use in another court battle later on. Do you see what I'm saying? That it'll still be arguable even in other courts. Just, so it's important that every time elections are challenged this way, the Democrats have to win that 100%. They cannot lose any of these kind of cases, because just one victory can derail any other future challenges to Republicans trying to change the rules after an election by who gets to have a vote counted and stuff. Okay, that kind of shit shouldn't be allowed to happen. And thankfully, the judge here kind of laid out and said, look, this is it. You guys can't do this. Okay, it's not right. There's no rule in the book that says that you guys can decide later, oh, well, this ballot here doesn't have proper identification, or what, or, there's something wrong with this one, or, or just eliminate an entire swath of votes, okay, and trying to chip away at the other side's victory until there's no victory at all. That's cheating. That's cheating, hands down. You either accept the results, or just don't get involved in the game, And unfortunately, this case is probably going to be appealed, as most people think that it will, this decision. And so we haven't heard the last of this yet. And that goes to show you just how mean-spirited and simple-minded and, the way they are to handling something like this. I mean, it was so obvious that they were trying to undo the outcome of this. They were so pissed. They were so pissed that they lost. They really thought they was going to win this. And when they lost, they acted just like Donald Trump, okay? And they went on a tirade, okay? But, so far, they now that this has gone to a federal court, seated by a judge that was appointed to that position by Trump himself. Okay, this went to a federal court. I mean, Jesus Christ. What more do you need to prove that Jefferson Griffin's case was wrong? And he has no grounds to do this. I mean, this is ridiculous. I mean, he actually wanted to stop people's votes being counted who were in the service. Okay? You can't do that. You just can't. If everything was postmarked on the day of the election or before, if you have early voting, those votes automatically get counted. Okay? They automatically get counted. If it's after the day, of course you don't count the votes after the election day. But if all the votes came in at the time they were supposed to come in, then that's okay. That's the only matter that And how can you deny people in the military to count their vote? Jesus Christ! I mean, you can't even join the fucking military. If you don't have all the paperwork and everything you need to even be in the service. Okay? That's almost as good as having a fucking passport and a driver's license rolled up into one. I mean, if someone's a veteran or someone serving in the military, there should be no doubt that vote is going to get counted. Okay? That's it. If they show up in uniform to vote, that's it. You don't question whether or not they're fucking American. Jesus Christ. So the balls on these people to sit here and do this shit. I mean, it's very obvious what they're doing, okay? And the judge saw right through it. You can't do this. You're trying to create rules after the election so that way you can disenfranchise thousands of fucking votes that you don't want counted. All right? No, I'm sorry, but no. Ain't gonna happen. It's not gonna happen. And, you can appeal this all you want. But, personally, I don't think that there's going to be any case that's going to show that there's anybody that's going to support it unless it's like Eileen Cannon. Okay? Someone that's a known, has her lips attached to Trump's ass. Okay? This is how it goes. And I'm glad that the decision was handed down. I mean, I had some hesitation about thinking that there was going to be any reasonable decision made by a judge who was appointed by Trump on the federal level. But I guess this guy really thought that, there's really no solid standing to not count these votes. So there's no way you can excuse that. Okay, any judge that would support it would obviously be a tainted judge. Okay, so to say, I mean, it'd be like saying, okay, well, the guy that stole all your money, it's okay. I mean, that's how ridiculous it is. For any judge to sit here and support not letting people's votes get counted is the same as letting a robber run away with all your shit after he was caught red-handed. Okay, you just can't. There's no way you can do that legally or logically that makes any fucking sense. So why try? Do what's, right. Rather than trying to create a wrong and say it's right. I don't know. But, like I said, this is one of those things that we're going to have to put up with from here on out in elections, presidential elections, congressional ones, senatorial ones. All the elections we have, we're going to have to deal with sore losers who simply won't fucking accept the results of what's happened, okay? And let's just keep in mind that it started with Republicans. Okay, they're the ones that opened the door to the sore loser path, and they have steadily been paving and repaving that road and extending that road to include all other aspects of our society, political society, in order to get a foothold on government, because they know their policies suck, and that most of the time they can't get the majority of the country on their side on anything that they support because people don't agree with it. And that's been hurting them for decades. Fucking decades. You know, you think they'd learn. Look, people don't want abortion, so let's just shut up about it. You know, they don't, you know, people want to have their abortions. You know, let's stop fighting that, because we're losing that fight. Okay? We can force a ban, but they're going to resist it. They're going to fight back, and it's going to hurt us bigger in the end, because we'll lose all kinds of seats trying to force people to swallow that pill. They're not going to take it, because you can't make your case about abortion. No matter how no matter how many nasty pictures you show us, or how many quotes out of the Bible you say to us, we're not buying it. We're just not fucking buying it. So you people have lost. And so when you can't win, you know, your case, you try to take it away. You try to take the votes away from people who are honestly voting by the rules. Okay, you try to stop them from voting, or stop their votes from being counted, because you can't get your way. You know, you forget about how politics is supposed to work. It's the art of compromise. Okay, and if you're so dead set on something and you can't get it, okay, you need to step back. You need to step back and reevaluate your position, because the more you argue it, the more hateful you start to get, and the less people listen to you. All right? I mean, it's like somebody arguing the case till hell freezes over that the moon is made out of cheese. Okay? No one's going to buy it. Some freaks will, but not everybody will. And so you keep trying to force people to believe it, and you do things to make them try to believe it. They're going to be more and more angry at you for trying to argue that case. And anytime somebody tries to bring it up, those people will also be on the target list. Okay, so you have to learn when to say, you know, I'm defeated, I can't fight this. You know, so you know, other people have to argue that point instead of you. Okay, when it comes to abortion, the issue seems to land on the laps of Christians, you know, on the religious side. So that means you need to let that be a decision given to each person in this country. You let them decide whether or not they should have abortions or not, because it's not right for the government to, you know, put its foot on our neck to prevent us from doing something that really has no business to do with the government. Okay? It really doesn't. You know, before people could have abortions, we had a mess in this country. A mess. You know, of you know, women trying to abort children on their own, and you know, and it was causing, you know, women to get hurt so bad they die, and you know, it was terrible. Okay, but you know, and plus, you know, the states were really nasty about the idea, and any clinics that were doing this stuff were being attacked. So obviously this was an issue that only became a government issue because of the ramifications of the lives being lost, and the civil disorder that was being created by those folks who are religiously tied to the issue of there not being any abortion. So I guess you could say that at the end of the day, you know, if you are of a religion that doesn't believe in it, that's fine. Okay, I'm not going to stop you if that's what you believe. Okay, if you think that, you know, abortion is wrong and it's killing a life. Okay, well, you can live your life on that principle if you want, but it's not up to you to force everybody else to do that. That's where you cross the line. That's where it's wrong. Other people can live their life. I mean, okay. Let's narrow this down to a more simpler argument, okay? A car. You buy a car, I buy a car. I don't like the way you drive your car. I don't like the way you don't take care of your car. I don't like the way the horn on your car sounds when you honk it. I don't like the color of your car. So I want the government to regulate that and stop you from having that kind of car with that color, with that horn, and the way you drive it. Okay? Do you think that's fair? It's your property, right? And who the hell am I to tell you how you should have your car? You know? But that's kind of what they're doing. You got people telling other people how to live their lives, and it's not their business. You know? And you know, that kind of like dovetails back to this thing about this case here, where you got people who are pissed off that they can't win, and they're trying to disenfranchise all these folks to make a win, you know, by the most abstract and criminal way possible. All right, and that's what this is. And any judge that supports that, you know, well, it wouldn't be a very good thing for that judge to support it. Okay, because from then on, that precedent will be the pariah of our courts in future cases that are brought up because of, oh, well, this side's tampering with the elections. Okay, that side will bring up that fucking case and say, well, the judge supported us on that. You know, doesn't matter if the judge was an idiot that supported it, but the fact that he ruled for it. Okay, they're going to hold that as an asset in their briefcase to bring to court whenever they have this fight. You know, that's why Democrats have to win all of these cases. They can't lose on any of the grounds. So, but I'm glad that they did. And like I said, this isn't over yet. The 6 months, and we're still fighting this thing out. Okay. They're really nervous, okay? These people are really nervous that all they thought they had gained, they are finding out they are losing. In many ways, they're losing a lot. You know, and this isn't very good for Trump with his extremist agenda. This isn't very good, you know, for, you know, his administration or you know, these lawyers and stuff he's got out there. This is not good. It's not good. It only adds more fuel to the fire that what we've been living under for the last 4 months is a form of tyranny. Okay? Really. I know it might seem an extreme word to use, but you know, you haven't seen how what he's done already has hurt people all, you know, right now. There's people out there suffering worse than others because they lost their job this year. At the start of the year, I mean, they lost it. One of the federal workers and shit like that, you know, they're out on the fucking street, you know, without a job. And regular civilian workers have lost jobs. Okay, so you tell them, you ask them, do you feel like this is tyranny? Okay, that, you know, you lost your job because of one man's obsession with tariffs. You know. It's all relative, I suppose. That's what they tell you sometimes. It's relative. All right. So that's it for today. Hope everybody has a great rest of the week. Subscribe, comment, share. Keep your ears open for health issues. And be friendly to your neighbors and just help each other out in the days to come. I'll talk to you guys later. Take care.